Great to be here to resume our hearings on the annual plan and long-term plan and water. Our first public participant is Nick Lambrickson. Welcome, sorry. Oh, I couldn't see you there, Nick. Welcome.
Hidden from
you were hidden, but now you're not. That's wonderful. So you have 10 minutes, and that includes time for questions if you'd like to leave any. Thank you.
Very good. I decided to start with water done well. And as one of those civic-minded retirees with time on his hands, I wish to summarise my comments as follows. I have preference for your option 1, a multi-council-owned water organisation, as water and pipes are often shared by many councils. But to me, that sounds like a regional council responsibility, although I'm not sure that that is what is intended. The proposed organisation must be staffed with engineers who ensure cooperation and coordination of waterworks with roadworks. It is no good fixing up roads on top of old pipes, as has happened in Thorndon Quay. I'm waiting for that new road surface to be dug up again. I'm also scared that the new organisation might increase water levies further and that it may be privatised, resulting in the water problems as we have seen in the UK. I would like to see improved regulations regarding grey water for garden use. From my own observations, I can see a lot of useful water being wasted down the drain. Now, if you want me to just stop here and not start on the annual plan submission, then whatever.
I think do all your talking and we can take any questions at the end, Nick. I think that works well.
Okay. Well, with regards to the annual plan submission, the gist of my summary is to keep rates down well below the proposed figure by creating a large debt headroom by canning your very expensive projects such as the Golden Mile project. I prefer option C for Begonia House with a modest budget increase of 2.9 million to retain its plant collection and its attraction to 250,000 people per year. With regards to Karori Event Centre, I prefer option D with a modest budget increase of 1.3 million so that it can be used by its community. With regards to the bike network, I prefer option 3 by finishing approved projects and rephasing any pre-implementation projects. And with regards to the City to Sea Bridge, I oppose its demolition, and I hope that the High Court will rule in favour of the Wellington Civic Trust appeal. It's much more efficient to separate pedestrians from vehicle traffic by an overbridge than by a pedestrian crossing, which will impede traffic. So I'll leave it at that, and if there are any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor McNulty.
Kia ora, Nick, just since we have time. I guess I'm interested, if you take the Golden Mile, we're getting 50 cents on the dollar from central government. We'll probably never ever get a deal which means it's going to be as effective or as cost effective to do for Wellingtonians. So does that play into your thinking at all, or you're of the view it should just still be scrapped?
I think it should still be scrapped. I mean, it's all very well to get support from the government, but I think this whole project is going to be so disruptive to the area concerned that I think it should be scrapped, and the vast sum of money that has been promised will no doubt be exceeded in spite of various promises, so it should be canned.
Thank you.
There appear to be no other questions, but we'd like to thank you for taking the time to come in and share your thoughts with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, we have a little pause at the moment. I don't think we've got any other public participants here yet. So, okay, well, hopefully they'll be here soon. So we'll just take 5 minutes, and if you could stay in the room, that would be wonderful. Thank you. No. So if you can come and sit around the table if you've got a few people who want to come, and we can probably pull in some more chairs as well. Are we? If you can make sure that you use the microphones. Oh. All right. Is the live stream back on? Beautiful. If you can make sure that you use the microphones for people that are online, and the audience of thousands who are watching these hearings with great excitement. So you have 10 minutes, including time for questions if you'd like to leave any. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Council, and kia ora ana tātou katoa, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Adrian Orr and the chair of the Whale Malai Trust, and it's wonderful to have extra chairs here for Dame Winnie Laban and Kara Putaku Dentis, who I know that you will be very familiar with. I hope we won't, well, I certainly won't take the 10 minutes talking. If you have questions, I mean, the main thing that I want to say is thank you very, very much, councillors of Wellington City, for your support to have us here today. The vote back, I think it was November last year, 16 to 2 in favour of keeping the Whale Malai on the long-term plan is extremely welcome from us, of course, but I think also an inspired decision by the council. No need to talk about the criticality of Pacifica history in Aotearoa, New Zealand, being a Pacific nation, but also Pacifica for the future of Aotearoa, New Zealand, not just our own people, but the people of the region, and, dare I say, globally these days with all of the political challenges that are going on, particularly now in the Pacific as well. We truly believe that the Whale Malai, the Whānau Pacifica, will be a rock of stability for New Zealand to show our role here in this part of the world, to show our belief in the region and criticality of our people of the region. It will be an iconic building. It will create and help cement Wellington as the cultural capital of this region globally. Māori, European, Pacifica, and I know coming after us, the Chinese contributions to this part of the globe and this part of the country is amazing. So to be able to think that the waterfront in 5 years' time will have that full reflection really will be a magic moment for the country as a whole. Locally, without doubt, Wellington needs lots of positive stories. We all need positive stories. Your decisions that you've made today to support us will be a very positive change for the Wellington waterfront. We are eager to remove the earthquake-prone car park that is there, and then to replace it with this amazing taonga, the Whale Malai. So, it really is a passion for us. It will cement the physical, the cultural, and the social connection that we have to this region. So that's our big drive. Our ask from here is really simple. It's that you continue to support. I know financially it's around assisting us remove the car park, and then obviously emotionally, spiritually, and every now and again with your hand saying aye when we turn back up here in June for our landowner approval, the support for that. So that's us. We are ready to go. Thank you.
Are there... Oh, sorry. Is anybody else going to speak? No. Are there any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor McNulty.
Thanks for coming in today. You'll have to take me back to November because that feels like an eternity ago. But I do remember we'd had some discussions around you guys were going to be able to provide a bit more financial support or seeding to make this project viable as long as we kept our commitment. So I just wanted to get a bit of a status check, since we hadn't heard from you guys, that that's still on track fiscally, etc.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd probably reverse it. This is a gift to the people of Wellington. I mean, Wellington Council basically are having a subsidised removal of the earthquake-prone car park, and then the rest of it is our capital at risk to see it through, sitting on the people of Wellington's land on the waterfront. We are doing it through the business case where the council will not be put at financial risk. We're planning on our way through. We've got contribution from Kōrau. Obviously, we're talking about the contribution that's come from council, but the rest will be from the citizens of the Pacifica region. We've got a big ask ahead of us on that fundraising space. We haven't been able to get started until we know we've got something to get started on, but we are, truly excited and ready to begin that process. So we've de-risked it on behalf of the council.
There appear to be no more questions, but I'd like to thank you, the three of you. It's lovely to see you, and thank you for all of your continued ongoing work on this exciting project. Thank you.
Me take maata.
Now, can I just double check? Is the Wellington Chinese Garden Society? Are you ready to come?
No.
Okay, all right. Well, we will wait till. Is there anybody else? Brian and Graham. Brian and Graham, are you here? Are you able to come up? That would be wonderful. Churton Park Community Association. Thank you so much for being flexible with the timing. Welcome.
Thank you.
And you have 10 minutes, of course, including time for questions. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak to the council today. It's good to see some friends from the Northern Ward sitting here as well. We have some very interesting and robust conversations when we're having our committee meetings, and it's really good to have council's input into doing that. So I'm the Vice President of the Community Association. It sounds awfully grand, but it's not. We're a very functional association, and what we're wanting to see is what is best for not only Churton Park but Wellington as a whole. Just a couple of points at the heart of our initial submission is what we see as two important points. One is this government's decision to refocus councils on core services. We applaud that from this government, and that's something that I think we would like to see the council more attuned to. And the other is also the council's own community outcomes. Community outcomes, the 5 outcomes, which from our point of view, we would say is being a tad eroded around the economic well-being and the urban form side of things, and that's a feature of our submission. Importantly, the council serves everyone. It's not about vested interest. It's not about particular groups or interest groups. It's about making sure that the needs and the desires of all members of the community are satisfactorily met in a balanced way. And we think there are some challenges in that at the moment. We know that households and businesses are suffering. We think there's a need for the council to stick to core business and to be aware of initiatives that deter support for businesses. And we emphasise that a bit here because we are seeing an increased closure of business now, not, I admit, due solely to what's happening in Wellington itself. The economic climate itself is pretty risky, and so there are multiple causes. But I think, as the consultation document put it for the annual plan, if we're wanting to improve the economic well-being of the city, we've got to take account of what that looks like. What does it look like? We're not about niche industries. We're about core businesses and growing businesses generally for the good of people. Because at the moment, we think there are barriers deterring people from the suburbs and other parts of Wellington, of the country, from coming into the city, and largely due to access problems. And we would also like to see a greater level of accountability around potential cost blowouts. And there are I think, of a number of instances where that be. What we noticed with the in the consultation document was almost an anticipation that the people of Wellington would support for actioning a lot of the proposals and projects. We would say that there has been insufficient information in the consultation document to actually give the people of Wellington an informed view about what it is they would be signing up to. And I think that's a major detractor. Well, not we think that's a major detractor and something that needs to be addressed for quite a few of the projects, and we outline that in our submission. Just getting down to the detail, I won't go through all of the points that we put in the summary, but the key ones are we do support option one. Option one was pretty much aligned to what we believed should have been when we were going through the consultation process last year. We acknowledge that there have been expenditure reductions, but we are concerned about the continued allocation of funds to what we will consider non-core services. More specifically, I just want to go through a few of the particular proposals. Begonia House, we believe the Begonia House should stay. It's an iconic part of the gardens, and people really, really enjoy being able to use that part of the gardens, and it would be tragic if it was to go. But we don't think it needs to have the kind of maintenance proposals. We don't think the case has been made for the kind of maintenance proposals that are on the table at the moment, which is around the structure and around the panes of glass. We think that needs to be reviewed, and any expenditure should stay within the original cost estimate. Excuse me a moment. Kōrau Event Centre. We know that's attracted a huge amount of public interest. We support Kōrau on this. They've invested a lot of time, effort and money into facilitating the future of that event centre on the basis that the council would come to the party. Any suggestion that it wouldn't now, I think, is a sign of poor faith, and I think it also doesn't bode well for what other suburbs would like to see the council do. In terms of Te Awe Mapara upgrades, we of course have had a long-standing call for a new and enlarged community centre in Churton Park. We think that it was undersized when it was built. It's got worse as the population in Churton Park has expanded, and we're losing an opportunity to maximise what a community centre can provide for all the people of Churton Park. So we would like to see that addressed reasonably quickly. The bike network. We want that to stop. We want it to cease basically forthwith. And we think that stopping it presents an opportunity for a fully independent review to be undertaken of the effect of the current bicycle network, and for it to be assessed for what may or may not be needed in the future. In terms of the annual plan, we support option 2. We think that that should stay on the table as part of the treaty settlement, because if it is as Taranaki Whānui say, they should be having that considered within the treaty as opposed to separately. Commercial rates for Airbnb type people, totally opposed to it. And we're concerned that the explanation for it being put in place is because it's the right thing to do, which is not explained in any shape or form. And the council itself has admitted that it would be difficult to enforce. We think that the money that would be directed to that should be directed to more core service areas. We think it would be a wasteful expenditure for very little material gain. And in terms of the local water done well, we support the preferred option. But given the experience we've had with Wellington Water, there's going to have to be a big job to restore the confidence of the community around governance, around transparency, around fiscal prudence and service delivery. If that can be achieved, then I think we'll have gone a long way from where we currently are. That's it.
We probably have time for one quick question from Councillor McNulty.
Just quickly, thank you, Graham. Representing a community that's actually grown, could you just talk a little bit more about where the community centre, the utilisation and the issues that we're facing?
I'll do my best. It's, as I said, it was undersized from the start, which means it restricts the number of people who can use it for any particular purpose at any one time. It also has very small number of rooms, which means it doesn't have the diversity of use that it could in parallel with usage. So what I'm saying is you can't have more than one thing going on at a time. And in a suburb where we're seeking to have cultural and social well-being as a core, a community centre should be a hub for that, but it's got to be right-sized to actually achieve that purpose.
Thank you. We're out of time, but we appreciate you taking the time to come and see us today. I'd now like to welcome the Wellington Chinese Garden Society, if you're ready to come and... I see a big group. No, there's some supporters in the crowd. I love that. Yes, okay. Wonderful. Welcome, Tina and team.
You tell me when. So sorry.
No, nothing to apologise for. We have 10 minutes, so we'll just reset the clock. And over to you.
You can start, Auntie. Yeah. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Daga ho. My name is Esther Fung, a patron of the Garden of Beneficence. I've watched the garden project grow over 20 years from a small idea into something truly meaningful for our community and the wider community. This garden through landscape speaks of our city and our country. It is more than just a garden, it is a legacy. I may not live to see it fully come to life. I have passed the torch to the next generation, to Tina and to Sophie, who are ready to carry it forward. I am here to ask that you include in the long-term plan this project. Please support it so that our future generations can enjoy the beauty and the purpose that is our dream. So, ngoi sai, ngā mihi nui, and thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Sophie toku ingoa. Daja hao, wajau Sophie. That's how I started my submission 4 years ago when I sat at this table and spoke about this same project. In fact, I could repeat the same submission here today, because other than being 15, nothing else has changed since then. To save time, I won't do that, but instead I'll reiterate the fact that this garden is our chance to celebrate the thousands of Chinese New Zealanders that call Wellington home. This garden can inspire others to share their cultural identities with the people of Wellington. This garden is a gift, a way to share culture, show respect, and bring people together, which is why it's so important to keep this special project in our long-term plan and see it through. So hopefully I won't be back here in another 4 years repeating this submission. Thank you.
Kia ora, good afternoon. My name is Tina Dome and I thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. Before I begin, there are a few people I just want to acknowledge who are here supporting us today online. Her Excellency, Ms. Mazita Mazuki, High Commissioner for the Malaysian, High Commissioner of Malaysia. She's currently dealing with an emergency of her people, but I thank her for tuning in online. The Honourable Dame Winnie Leyburn, Adrian Orr, and members of the Whale Malai Trust, legacy weavers for the Pacific community, and also fellow visionaries for Frank Kitts Park. I haven't forgotten. Auntie's just saying. Yes, most definitely. Our representatives from the Chinese Embassy. We have Madam Han and Ms. Shen. And we thank them for their continued support with a vision that strengthens our cultural connection in Wellington. Also, our members of the Chinese community and the public, wanting a welcoming and living landmark that brings people together across generations and cultures. I thank them for their time that they've taken to be here today. We're here today to express our support for the proposed deferral of funding for Frank Kitts Park, with one important amendment. We propose that the Wellington City Council formally commit to continued engagement with the Wellington Chinese Garden Society to explore opportunities as they arise on the project. It's a simple but essential addition. Why? The project has always been about more than just construction. It's about vision. And as Esther has said, it's about a legacy that we leave on the waterfront. Since 2001, the vision to transform Frank Kitts Park into a vibrant, inclusive space has been part of Wellington's long-term planning. In 2022, Council ran workshops with key stakeholders and it ended up with a bold, unified design, a plan that would position Frank Kitts Park as a world-class urban landmark, something that serves very diverse needs of our community and future generations. We support the amended long-term plan. The timeline is pragmatic, it's financially responsible, and importantly, it aligns the above-ground improvements with infrastructure maintenance that needs to happen below ground. We also want to acknowledge one critical truth. This is not a new conversation. It took over a decade to build the Frank Kitts Park playground, and through it all, the Wellington Chinese Garden Society has remained steadfast. Despite delays and setbacks, our commitment to creating the Garden of Beneficence has never wavered. That is why our amendment matters. Engagement isn't just good process, it's respect, it's recognition, and it's the pathway to realising a garden that symbolises friendship, history and cultural depth. Let's not lose sight of what is possible. Let's continue to move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have some questions, the first being from Councillor Pannett.
Thank you for coming in and for all your work. I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do to speed this up from your perspective, because unfortunately putting money in the outer years can mean that it will never happen, and you've already had to wait for 20 years. It's really sad, and we want to speed it up.
Do you want me to answer? Okay. I think there are things that can be done in parallel on the project. Whilst it is a requirement that the car park needs to come down in 2031, being the last date that it legally needs to be torn down, we can actually move that stuff forward. There are infrastructure works that need to happen on the waterfront as well. So as I said, it's not just about creating something pretty on the waterfront. It's actually about a lot more, and it connects with the needs for infrastructure as well, and I believe that should be prioritised.
We have a question from Councillor Abdurrahman.
Thank you so much, Issa, and for those who are taking the things forward. My question is, why do you think council is taking so long in listening to the community? We listened before Whalamalai, now the Chinese, 20 years. Do you think the resource or not really understanding the vision and the admiration of the community that's bringing those things forward?
Look, quite simply, you come into office, you're here for 3 years. Some people stay one term, some people stay longer. And it's difficult to have people understand and continue with that vision. It's in New Zealand, it's quite unusual compared to Chinese culture, where we would take forward the plans of others and see them through to fruition. Here in New Zealand, we like to challenge everything that is put into place and try and turn things over and start from scratch all over again. And there's a lot of rework that gets done. That was a big part of some of the reasoning. I think we're all in a really good space at the moment around Frank Kitts Park. As I said, there's a really great unified design for a lot of communities, and it's time to make it happen. It should happen faster.
Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much for coming in once again. Tina, if we were able to accelerate the demolishment of the car park, would the Chinese Garden Society be able to accelerate their moves to do their fundraising to actually fit in with that schedule?
Yes.
Councillor. And one more from Councillor Young.
Thank you. I know this has been long and drawn out. Can you tell me, originally it was going to be funded by the local Chinese community. Who's going to be funding it now?
It was always going to be a mix of funding for the works above ground, and that has not changed. So the proposal, we already have $1 million that we've been sitting on and waiting for and actually gifted to council. That never gave me their bank account number. It's always been a case that the stuff above ground was going to be funded from alternative sources, including people overseas, sister cities. We've done a lot of work last year when we went overseas.
Sister cities, one's in China.
Pardon?
Sister cities in China.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course fundraising. So it was always the case. It maintains the case. We will cut our cloth to suit, is what they say, something like that. We'll make it fit within the fiscal envelope that we need to work with.
Thank you so much, Esther, Tina and Sophie. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and, of course, your ongoing work on this project. Thank you. Councillors, there are many guests who you may want to mingle with, and we'll take a 5-minute adjournment as we wait for the next participant. Thank you. To the podium, Chris Horn. Welcome. Kia ora, and you have 5 minutes, including time for questions if you'd like to leave it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou katoa. Thank you for having me to speak to you for about 5 minutes on 2 topics. First of all, the Begonia House, that important, botanically important building, contiguous with another very important building, that is the Picnic Cafe. Those two act as attractants to each other, or for each other, and drawing substantial crowds through much of the year. I urge you to protect the Begonia House and the Picnic Cafe building and restore them as necessary to keep them going for many decades yet. They're such special places. The other, if you were to demolish the Begonia House to create a car park, as is rumoured, then that would be an effort to make up for the blunder in taking all those car parks out on Glenmore Street. And just imagine what it would be like looking at the Rose Garden with a row of cars in the backdrop. Hardly attractive. So please work on the Begonia House and Picnic Cafe area to make sure that they will last for decades yet. And the second topic I wish to discuss is the cherished and loved City to Sea Bridge. What an edifice it is. No doubt people would like to pull it down for some reason, but in effect it is a treasure for this city and this nation, with marvellous, culturally significant posts on the bridge at its crest. It, at the moment, provides a very convenient access from Harris Street, that's the route I always use, to go to the Whareawaka, to Odlands Plaza, to Circa, to Papa, and Takina. It could not be replaced by a pedestrian crossing over the hectic 6 lanes on Jervois Quay, putting we pedestrians at risk time and time again. So please arrange to have any strengthening done. It will be an enormous investment in the future of the city to have that cherished structure retained.
Are there any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Free.
Thank you, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just interested in your statement that it's botanically important, the Begonia House, and I wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more with your, I know, quite deep experience.
It features a number of tropical plants from the Pacific, particular, so people can go in there, see these plants in that atmosphere which is arranged to keep them thriving with respect to humidity and temperature. It attracts people from not just Aotearoa but from overseas. And of course, once they've been there, where do they go next? To the marvellous cafe next door.
Councillor Pannett.
Thanks, Chris. I was just a bit similar to Councillor Free. So are there some other plants that we could bring in to even elevate the Begonia House more as a scientific institution?
I can't answer that directly, but if you were to ask botanists at Te Papa or Victoria University, they could provide the answer that you seek, Councillor.
Quick question from Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much, Chris. Would you be comfortable with just doing the bare minimum to strengthen Magodia House to make sure that we actually fix the structure and the panes and not anything else?
That would keep it going, I believe, Councillor, for more years yet, and perhaps in the longer term, more substantial work could be done on the building to ensure that it'll last another few decades yet.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. We appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with us. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou.
Philip Shirley, welcome. No, my Philip, and you have 5 minutes too. Thank you.
Thank you. Kia ora. So I'm Phil Shirley. I wear a few hats. I'm a GP. I'm a public health registrar. I recently returned to Wellington after 3 years away in Stockholm, Sweden, where I studied health economics. And last but not least, I'm the father of 2 teenage daughters. I'm going to first speak as a resident of Kōrau, and I want to speak to the Kōrau Event Centre. I'm against the sale of the centre without specific provision of how the money gained will be spent in the suburb of Kōrau. Kōrau, for its size, has very few community spaces, and the ones that we have are dated and small. 3 different halls were demolished prior to the event centre being built. These were being actively used by the community. Both my daughters did fairy ballet in one of the halls at the time. Seems like a long time ago. Kōrau needs the centre, and it should be funded and completed. The community in Kōrau is quite angry. There's a number of grassroots movements. That is quite a lot of invective against the council up in Kōrau. Putting on a different hat, I want to speak as a GP and as a public health expert and as a health economist. I want to talk about health and how we can make more of it. And I want to speak in unapologetic hyperbole, given the time constraints today, but I'm happy to back anything I've set up if you want to get in touch with me later. So a question I've pondered for many years is, how do we produce more health? Is it more healthcare? Is it more and better, newer drugs? The conclusion that I've come to is that health is a function of the society that we have, and the healthcare system takes care of disease. It was a fantastic surprise to me when I got back from Sweden to see the progress that had been made here in Wellington on the cycleways, and I want to encourage you to continue this good work and complete the planned routes and the connections between them. When I consider chronic diseases and mental health conditions, these have become 2 of the most prominent and important things for New Zealand as a whole, especially in the health community. The solutions to these conditions aren't to be found in the healthcare system, but they're to be found here when we're planning how we set out our urban environments. We need policy that creates more health, not more healthcare. I want to encourage that we need more cycleways and community public goods such as event centres that are going to encourage connections between people, that are going to get people out of their comfort zone and physically active. These health promoting behaviours are what's going to make a big difference for the health of New Zealanders. It's not unreasonable to say that public goods like these can prevent cancers, they can prevent diabetes, and they can prevent depression and anxiety. My point is that cycleways, event centres, green spaces, and bridges that connect the city to the sea are not nice to haves. They're critical pieces of health promoting infrastructure that we need to live good lives. The economist in me knows that we can't have everything we want. We've got to make choices. All I'm asking from you is that when you're making the cost-benefit analysis of these projects, you don't just consider dollars and cents, but also consider the critical role these projects play in producing healthy people.
Great, thank you. I do have some questions. The first one from Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much for coming in. Much appreciated, Philip. Talking about health issues, do you think that there are a lot of other things that we can actually do which don't cost so much? You know, for example, walking, getting a dog and walking. Walk in the parks. Follow Chris Horn's example and tramp into our native bush and the areas that we have around Wellington. Would that provide as many health benefits as cycleways?
No. If someone builds in getting to work in an act of transport, that's something they do every day. It's nice if you've got the time and the money to spend the time walking in the bush. Not everybody does.
Quick question from Councillor Pannett.
Thank you. So given all the evidence, what do you think is the best way to communicate to sceptical members of the public that these cycleways are necessary?
Seconds.
I mean, bad ideas die. You just have to do it and people will see the benefits. There'll be more parking spaces, the roads will be less congested. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in. I'm holding myself back from calling you Dr. Phil. We really appreciate it.
Once.
That's my one time. Thank you so much, Phil. We really appreciate it. Now, I would like to welcome Steve Walters. Now, Steve, you have a combined session of 20 minutes, so we'll just put it all together for you. I know you've got 2 sets of slides, so we're just going to put it all together. You do however much talking you want to do, stop for questions whenever you want, and we've got you on the clock. Yeah, so Steve is speaking on behalf of Destination KRL and the Joint Bid Group. So welcome, and friends, welcome.
There we go. Is that working? Kia ora, councillors. Thank you for all your hard work. Last week when I came, it was good news. I was saying to the council, don't give us money on behalf of the airport. Today I'm a little bit grumpier. That's right. So first I'm going to speak on behalf of Destination KRL, which is the Business Improvement District for Kubuni Rongotai, Lao Bay, and then Bernadette and I will speak on behalf of all 6 bids when it comes to what's happening in the economic scene in Wellington. So first let's look at Destination KRL. There's 4 key areas I want to talk about. Firstly, at Destination KRL, we're a very large bid. We've got over 350 businesses. We're the largest bid in Wellington. We've got a really diverse range of businesses, and that means we employ a really large amount of people. We don't just represent the 300 businesses, we represent hundreds, if not thousands, of employees that work in those businesses. We generate $100 million worth of rates revenue for the City Council over the term of the long-term plan. So we're sizable, and it's a sizable amount of rates revenue to consider, and the people who are providing it. And as a bid, we're pretty active in keeping in touch with our bid members and knowing what's going on. We try and visit them 3, if not 4 times a year to hear what's going on. Right, our 4 areas of the submission that we want to talk about is, firstly, the sense that the council are overspending funds that they have. Secondly, that the commercial rates differential is too high when compared to a lot of other commercial business districts. I also want to talk about what's happening in our suburban centre versus the CBD. And lastly, I just want to talk about the importance of public transport to us. So let's go and look at that first one, overspending. Right, I can't hardly read this, so I don't know if my glasses would have helped. So let's see if I can... Oh, there we go. Oh, thank you, Terry. Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Right, so we've done some work looking at remember we were here a year ago submitting on the LTP. We're here a year later submitting on the LTP amendment. We've looked at the financial statements that are attached with this, and also looked at the monetary policy statement, which the financial statement is based on. And you're probably aware that that information is based on 2023 data, which had a lot more positive future forecasts than what's actually happening. At the moment, we've got Wellington that's going to its 6th quarter of decline. Our population's getting smaller. We've got higher living costs than anticipated. We've got rates increases which don't look like they're slowing down. We've got increased insurance costs given the shaky nature of our ground. We've got a world economy which is going pretty wacky at the moment, and we've actually got reducing house prices. So there's this general sense that things aren't going as well as we expect them to. When you look at New Zealand's income, you'll see that on average, based over the last few years, our income for people is only increasing 2.2% per year, but the rates increase is increasing, it's I think an average of 12.5% over the last 5 years. So the spending is out of whack with what people have got to spend and therefore what businesses are earning. Here's our ask on spending. We're asking you, please, to fund only essential projects. Times are tough. We all want to have the nice things. Now is not the time to be spending on them. We think that includes looking at internal spending. I know OPEX has gone from 600 million to 800 million, I think, in the LTP. That is something that certainly requires redress. I know there's a lot of funds being invested in cycleways, especially in Kōrau, which is fantastic. What we're saying is now is not the time to keep putting funds into cycleways. We totally appreciate public transport as the way to go, and I'll talk a little bit further on about the Eastern Corridor. We just think, given what's happening and given the new information at hand compared to what the LTP was based upon, now is not the time to be spending any excess money. I'm going to go on and talk about the commercial rates differential. So, as you're probably well aware, Wellington's commercial rates are 3.7 times the amount of residential rates. So any increase in rates has a massive impact on businesses, all commercial businesses and commercial properties in Wellington. We're 41% higher than Auckland, 66% higher than Christchurch. And what this is a big red flag to people saying, don't come and do business in Wellington. It's the most expensive place. You can go to other places that are going to treat you better. We don't want to see businesses walking away from KRL. We think a big barrier to businesses is an unnecessarily high commercial rates differential, and it's something as individually as KRL and as joint bids, it's something that we're going to keep working on because we think this is a massive issue for making Wellington an attractive place to do business. When you look graphically at the comparison here, it's not just other cities we're talking about. When you look at Lower Hutt, Porirua, you'll see that even compared to our neighbours, we're still charging businesses more. Pretty easy for a business just to walk out of here and just go up the valley, up the road, just a way to manage their costs because they need to manage their costs. So what are we saying when it comes to commercial rates? It needs to come down. I know it's not something that can happen instantaneously, but certainly in the midterm, if we want Wellington to be a place that attracts business, and we need it, this is a key part of what needs to happen. We want to encourage growth for businesses in Wellington. We want it a great place to do business. We don't want to have the big stop signs, stay away signs from what this rates differential does. And we want Wellington to be a great place to do business. We need to make it that place. Right. Okay. Oh, sorry. You're going to ask questions. Yeah, okay. Sorry,
I'll manage the questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll just keep on rolling. Issue 3, suburban investment. At the moment, 10% of Wellington's population live in the CBD. Just under half its population work out in the suburban areas as opposed to the CBD. I mentioned before that we're delivering $100 million worth of rates over 10 years. In this current LTP, including the amendment, only $11 million is going to be spent on all 6 bids on the city, on the infrastructure, town infrastructure, over the next 10 years. So we've got such a massive differentiation between what's being provided and what's being invested back into our town centres a lot of my members saying, where is the money going? Our rates are going up, but we're not seeing the return. And that's something that needs to be redressed. At the moment, if we got the amount of money back that's planned to be split evenly of that, $10 million, $11 million, we'd only be getting a 2% return on the funds that we provide through rates revenue. So it's a very big differential.
Just the time, you've got a minute and a half left. I've now got 5 councillors with questions.
Oh, okay. I'll fly through this. On suburban investment, it needs to be rebalanced. I'll just stop it there. And on public transport, I'm just going to say we strongly think with the district plan change in KRL, the medium densification that's allowed for housing, we see it as a place for growth. We think public transport's critical for that, and would love everything that can be done to support the Eastern Bus Transit Corridor to go ahead. I know we've talked from $16 million down to $6 million. We understand that, but we appreciate the fact that there's still investment in that.
Great.
Thank you.
Councillors, if you could keep your questions brief so we can get through a couple of them before we move on to the second submission. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thanks for your submission. In terms of, you're saying focus on the essential, can you give us a couple of examples of what you think is not essential, just so that we can understand what not essential means for you?
When it comes to core services, if the council's in charge of roading and water, I'm wary about defining what you shouldn't be spending money on, because I'm not in a position where I know exactly all the detail. But people understand core and nice to haves, and I think a lot more can be done in that area. Sorry, it probably doesn't help, but I'm just wary here.
I think, well, I've got a lot of questions, but I think maybe you want to move on to the second part of your submission, and then we'll go through the questions with what time we have left.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Up to you, Bente.
Kia ora koutou, can you hear me? Yep. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. I'm Bernadette Pallister from the Tower Business Group. We are here today with representing the 6 Wellington bids. We've got, as you've just met, Steve. We've also got Mary, who's coming along today as well from Enterprise Miramar. And we're also representing the Johnsonville Business Group and the Kōrau Business Association and the Kandala Business Association. So I'm going to paint a very quick picture here. The theme of our presentation this afternoon is economic well-being. I'm going to talk a little bit about the value of work, the bid's contribution, Wellington City Council's focus priorities, and then Steve's going to pick up the last part of the presentation and look at the current economic climate, the bid's assessment of the LTP amendment, and looking to the future. So employment is the central pillar of people's lives. It kind of defines who we are and why we're here. The work enables people to work together, to pool resources, to build the communities and services and infrastructures that they want. If there's no work, people tend to move, and I'm pretty sure that most of us around this table know somebody that's gone off to Australia because they think that the grass is greener over there. So the contribution that Wellington Bids makes is significant. We have the 6 bids represent about 1.4 billion of commercial property value. That's over 600 different properties. The suburban commercial properties provide about 1.3 billion of rates revenue over 10 years, and that's about 30% of your commercial rates income. So I'm not going to talk to you in any detail about these 5 focus priorities, because I'm pretty sure that you probably know more about them than I do. But as the business groups, we're here today to represent our business owners and our property owners, and therefore our main focus is looking at economic well-being, revitalising the city and particularly in our case the suburbs to support a thriving and resilient economy and to support job growth. Now before I pass you over to Steve, I'm in the process of doing our annual business plan or annual business survey, and I've been speaking to lots of our business owners, and about 2/3 of them are saying that there's no growth, their trading is no better this year than it was last year, and those are the same people that were saying that story to me last year. So we're now looking at 2 years where 2/3 of our businesses are having no economic growth. They're not seeing any growth in their sales. So any increases, obviously, in rates is going to push them just that little bit further. I'm going to pass you over to Steve. He's going to talk a little bit more about the current economic reality.
Thanks, Bernadette. So this is an expansion of just talking what's going on in Destination Kōrau and talking about what's going on in the greater Wellington suburban commercial scene. It's consistent. As Bernadette just said, all our regions, all our areas, zones are experiencing really tough economic conditions. It's worse than it was 12 months ago, and the data in the LTP doesn't reflect what's actually happening. Employment's going up, population's going down, wages are stagnant. We've got the flow-on effect. As soon as people have a sense that things are getting worse, they're spending less, so that impacts on businesses. And we've also, with business now, digital age, we've got increased competition from online sales, international sales, good old Tēmu, so everyone is finding it really tough at the moment. We've got increasing costs, rent's going up, insurance is going up, materials are going up, living costs are going up, and of course we've got good old rates which continue to keep soaring up at the moment, and they're unsustainable for our business community. The suggestion of a 12.2% rates increase, which won't exactly be that for the commercial community, but timesing it by 3.7% in hard dollars is not acceptable to our business community. It kills them. They won't be able to continue. So coming back to my earlier point, we need to have a look at the costs and work out what is definitely required and what is nice to have, because a lot of people won't be able to continue at the moment. Right, let's look at views on what the LTP amendment means for businesses. Generally, in speaking with my members, and Bernadette with hers, and Mary with hers, we all have the sense that business are being unduly taxed. They're being taxed too much. The return is too low, as I mentioned before, about the $11 million going to 6 bids over 10 years. And Te Awe Māpara Communities Facilities Plan being reduced by $10 million is just another example of less money going back into the communities. If this was a marriage, we'd be out pretty fast. Unfortunately, it's more like a 19th century parent sending the kids off to the factory and keep on working, because we don't have any choice but to keep paying what you decide the rates will be for our commercial partners to pay. We know that the spending has resulted in council debt doubling since 2017. We know we can't go on the way it's going. We totally support, at least as a bare minimum, option one with a $358 million reduction in capital expenditure. And we say, given the worse economic conditions that's been anticipated in the LTP, more needs to be done. Right, let's try and put a bit of a positive spin on it. Looking forward, what we think we need from the City Council, and we want to work in partnership with the City Council, is an economic strategy that firstly recognising the economic well-being is a really important pillar. We talked about the 5 priorities. It feels to us that the economic one is quite a long way down the list, and we need to recognise that people earning income gives them a great emotional, professional sense of being, but it also enables them to live and stay in Wellington. We know from the LTP we're losing the 20 to 39-year-olds. We need to attract younger people to Wellington, well, otherwise we're going to end up with people staying in their homes and not spending. And we want a City Council that works with the commercial sector and the bids to develop a Wellington-wide economy growth strategy that brings us into the discussion, that doesn't leave us on the outside. You know, in the LTP we talk about having a positive, business-friendly environment, but we're not seeing it at the moment, and we think more can be done to achieve that. We want to see thriving suburban centres, not forgotten ones. And if we work together, I'm sure we can do that.
All right, I'm going to go to questions from councillors who haven't asked a question yet today, so I'm going to start with Councillor
Do you think that, with looking at the LTP, do you think the council's putting too much investment into the CBD as opposed to the suburban areas generally?
Yeah, that's a pretty consistent message we've said for the last few years.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Councillor Rogers. It's fine if you want to ask it. Okay, Deputy Mayor Foon.
Kia ora, Steve and Bernadette and Jenny for coming in. I want to reflect the economic situation, and a lot is to do with losing jobs and just the mere threat of that through government administration being our highest employer. One of the strategies we haven't been able to declare as such, but is working toward making sure our tech sector and film sector are the biggest employers in the capital. Is that something that you would endorse in terms of making sure we've got economic stability and sustainability?
Yes, I'll speak on behalf of Kōrau, and I know Mary from a Miramar point of view totally supports it, and Bernadette. I mean, from my perspective, I mean, that's the way of the future. On a personal manner, and I'm speaking even outside Destination Kōrau, I'd love to see a digital currency strategy that the council are doing. You know, if we're going to be a tech city, let's be the Bitcoin capital of the South Pacific. Let's actually do things that are going to work for us, as opposed to just hoping and praying that maybe a couple more films will come to town, especially with Trump now, maybe putting 100% tariff on them.
Yes. Great.
You know?
Steve, we'll keep you updated with that strategy when it comes back.
I'd love to be part of it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Do it quick. The 3.7 times differential is obviously predicated on the idea we need to recoup the usage from out of the regions. So for you as the bids, do you think your hairdressers, cafes, mechanics are seeing the benefit of the commuter population that perhaps the CBD is?
I'm not quite sure of the question. Seeing the benefit in the way of spend, or what sort of benefit are you referring
the
to?
3.7 is predicated on people from Upper Hutt, Porirua, Lower Hutt come into the CBD, so we need to recoup their use on the infrastructure.
Yep.
Do you think that those people, that same differential argument stacks up in Tawa or Miramar or Wilburnie?
No. So yes, what you're saying is that the commercial businesses within the CBD are paying extra because they've got the benefit of people coming in. Most of people from Tawa will come into Wellington to work. So the people that are frequenting the businesses in Tawa tend to be the locals. They're not people that are going out there specifically to work. Yeah.
There was a suggestion in some of the submissions about having a different tier commercial rating for the suburban centres. Totally.
We can take a little bit more time, as we made up some time earlier. Councillor Pannett.
Thank you all. Just going back to the first part of your submission, if you shift the differential, do you accept that means that householders then have less cash, or are you just saying that we need to cut expenditure so that sort of makes that effect null?
Is your presumption that the loss in rating revenue from commercial would be passed on to residential? I'd definitely favour the latter. Look at spending as opposed to look at rating residential more.
When I spoke to a business owner last year, when we were looking at the rates differential, they specifically said that they'd rather keep it as it was at that time because they didn't want the residents to be paying more. But that was last year. I don't think much has changed, but yeah.
Yes. Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much for coming in, everyone. You were talking about the amount of money that's actually taken out of the bids and the amount of money that's actually returned to the bids. So similar to the question from my other colleagues, where would you actually like to see the money invested in these 6 bids? What can we actually do to help the bids?
An initial request would be to take less money out of the bids and let the people themselves decide where they want to spend the money. We're not looking for being taxed and then this arbitrary reallocation of funds. For us, it would be better to have a lower differential and businesses have their funds to decide what they need to do. I don't know if you agree with that. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to touch on a point that the Tower Community Board made yesterday, which was about the Community Facilities Plan and investing in that. And I know that Tower is looking at, we do need to renew our community centre and our library at some point. So seeing that money invested in that would be good.
Councillor Abdurrahman.
I'm really interested if you can share a story of a business, mum and dad's business that is struggling, what that means, and just like human face to what you presented to us.
All right, I can do that.
When people say business, sometimes it sounds like, oh, business people, rich people, but that's not the reality, as you know, a lot of people.
Okay, I have got a story that's quite heartbreaking. I spoke to one of our business owners recently, and she was just melting in front of me, and it was really painful to hear her talking. And then about 10 days later, she said, she put a notice on Facebook saying, we're closing up. And I said, you told me that last week, didn't you, without telling me those words. When I saw her in front of me, she can't go on any further. The costs have risen so much. She's just really struggled. And that has been her business for the last 5 or 6 years. 17th of May, no more.
The previous chair of Destination Kōrau, Joanne Morris, ran Wellington Sewing Centre for many years, which attracted a lot of people from all across Wellington. I've had her in tears. She's closed the business.
All right, that brings us to the end of our time. Thank you, Steve, Bernadette, Mary. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Gemma. No, my Gemma, nice to see you. You have 5 minutes, and if you want to leave any time for questions, you can be at the podium, you can be at the table, whatever works, as long as you have a green light on for your microphone.
Okay, thank you. I have some handouts. I don't have enough.
Oh, yeah, if you pass them to the team? Yep. Thank you, Gemma.
Do I push the button?
We'll.
Okay.
Gemma, I'm just not sure your mic's on.
Do you have to hold it?
No, you don't have to hold it.
Okay, good. Okay. Great. I'm Gemma. Thank you for having me here today. I have a Airbnb property in Mount Cook, and I've just shared some analysis today. I don't know if this has been brought to your attention before. I realise costs are rising. I realise that this is a commercial operation. I realise that if someone checks in the morning and has a shower, and then there's a cleaning in the middle of the day and somebody arrives later and has a shower, that's 3 times the water usage that the property might otherwise have. But if you look at the numbers here, this is the amount of rates that different hotels pay per year per room. It's on the assumption that every room sleeps 2 people. Of course, some hotel rooms may sleep more than that. And then you've got the amount of rates per room. The average is about $2,900 for the hotels that are listed. And that is very close to what I currently pay for residential rates. So I'm very happy to pay what the hotels pay, but based on this analysis, I'm already paying what the hotels pay. So if my rates were to go up if I stay on residential rates, and then I've got the increase that's been proposed for the coming year, with the 3.7 multiplier on top of that, my rates are looking to be more like 12,000. So my question is simply, why should we pay 4 times what the hotels pay?
Are there any questions of Gemma? Yes, Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, I was just wondering, the property that you're renting out, is that the entire rateable unit that you're renting out through Airbnb?
It is. It's a 1-bedroom unit. It's the entire unit. Yep.
Okay.
There appear to be no more questions. Gemma, thank you so much for especially the work that went into your analysis, and we appreciate you coming to speak with us. Thank you. Councillors, we are now going to go to a break till 2:45. We will come back at 2:45. Thank you. And John...
welcome back, councillors. We'll kick into our next afternoon session. So I'd like to welcome Rabana. Come on up, you've got 10 minutes.
Thank you. Tina koto katoa. I'm Rabana Adnan, manager at Karori Community Centre. I'm here to speak on behalf of Karori Community Centre. My submission is in relation to your proposal to sell or demolish the Karori Event Centre. I urge you to reconsider your proposal and to finish and open the Karori Event Centre. We need it. With my team, I work at the coal face of our community. We operate the community facilities right next to the unfinished Karori Event Centre. There are more than 60 different groups that use our facilities on a regular basis, and last year we had over 500 additional hours of one-off bookings. Our space provides somewhere for our community to come together, to connect, to build relationships, and to engage in meaningful activities that foster a sense of belonging and promote social cohesion. My team works hard to provide what we think is a core community service. We used to operate the St. John's Hall, the church that was demolished by council on the site next to the unfinished Karori Event Centre. Unfortunately, we now often have to turn people away, individuals, community groups, organizations. Why? Because either we don't have the space, or the space that we do have is not big enough to cater to their needs. Every day, we get queries about the Karori Event Centre. When will it be opened? Why is it still sitting unfinished, unused, empty? Schools, churches, sports, cultural, recreation and fitness groups, arts and performance groups all want the Karori Event Centre opened. I note that the need for Karori Event Centre was well established even before it was built. The Wellington City Council conducted a needs analysis confirming the need for a hall space. That demand hasn't gone away. In fact, it has only increased as we have lost 10 halls in the last 20 years. This is not just a Karori issue. The demand we see reflects a much broader need across Wellington's western suburbs. The Karori Event Centre was designed with that in mind. We already regularly support groups and activities from all over Wellington. In addition, there are community events and activities that used to operate in the former St. John Hall that are now completely missing entirely from Karori's landscape. Events like community movie nights, regular local festivals, craft fairs, larger fitness groups, theater, music, dance, and drama performances. The former St. John's Hall was also very well used by our youth center, as we know the event center will be. It will provide a flexible space for larger events and activities to help young people feel connected to their community. The event center will provide local opportunities to share experiences, celebrations, and help youth grow a strong sense of belonging to a community which meets their needs and their interests. All of these previous well-loved events and activities brought people together. They created vibrancy and connection, allowed people to try new things, to engage with other people, share ideas, and develop interests. We firmly believe many of these activities will return to Karori once Event Center is opened. We also see potential for new opportunities. The Fringe Festival, for example, showed immense interest in using the Karori Event Center as a venue. That kind of use brings life and energy into a community, and it also supports local businesses because we believe people coming to the event center will spend money on local shops and at local cafes. We know the Karori Event Center is absolutely needed. It is a critical piece of infrastructure, not just for Karori, but for Wellington more broadly. It would enable more events, more collaboration, and a stronger, more connected community. We need venues where people can come together, share ideas, celebrate cultures, and support well-being. It is also important to acknowledge the work and energy that our community has already put into this project over many years. Our community has worked hard with the council to get to where we are today. The bones of the building are there. What we now need is the political will to get it finished. We are very disappointed that completing the Karori Event Center is not listed as one of the options in the LTP amendment consultation document. It should be, and we urge you to amend the plan and commit to finishing it. And if you can't do that, at the very least, you should adopt your option 4, with the hope that this keeps the door open to further conversations about securing the necessary investment and getting the event center across the line. One final point. I believe that some of you doubt the local support for Karori Event Center. Let me assure you, from my perspective, the support is humongous. The money given by residents should be evidence enough. But let me tell you that I see hundreds of people every week at the community center. I cannot think of one person who, in all my time in this role, has been anything other than supportive of opening up the Karori Event Center. Not one person. So in conclusion, I strongly urge the Council to consider the real, lived experiences of the people at the coalface, the people who are doing the work of building connection and supporting well-being every day. We are doing our best with what we have, but we cannot meet the level of demand without the event center. The Karori Event Center would be a transformative asset for the community. Please finish and open a facility so our community can benefit from it. I thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I've got 2 councillors who are on the speaking list, so Councillor Young and Councillor Chung.
Thank you. So you have the Karori Event Centre, which we're discussing now. You also have the Karori Rec Centre and the Community Centre. What are those ones used for?
They are used, the community center that I work at is very small. It is used for different exercise groups, for different gatherings, but it does not provide a space large enough. It can only accommodate up to 60 to 70 people, and that too makes it a bit congested. And the Kōrau Recreation Center is for court and basketball court and stuff like that, but again, it has only 2 meeting rooms, and they are not big enough as compared to the Karori Event Center.
So, I mean, we're doing a site visit to the event centre, which I haven't ever seen, but how many will the event centre hold?
Pardon?
How many would the event centre hold?
Karori Event Center. I believe it is up to 200 people or more than that, yes. Yes, a big hall and other meeting rooms as well.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming in, Rabana. Much appreciated. In your opinion, what do you think is the minimum required to actually open the event centre?
Oh, I'm not an expert at the figures, but from the community-centric point of view, we received more than 1,600 submissions in favor of this over a period of just 2 to 3 weeks. So I believe every penny is worth spending at opening up the Karori Event Center. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rana. Next up, we have Bruce McLean. Afternoon, Bruce. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm speaking as an individual, and I'd like to think I'm here to help you save some money, which I'm sure you'd be interested in. As a ratepayer, I support the capital savings you've made so far. In addition, I suggest a further 90 million of savings could easily be made. This would take the savings total to 475 million. Unlike some other cost-saving measures, I believe this one will be politically attractive. And if you can just imagine that, a cost saving that people like, it's quite unusual really, isn't it? This saving can be made in Te Ngākau, the Civic Square, if it's restored to what it was before. Modest strengthening and tidy up is all that I think is required. It's a simple, risk-free and cost-effective thing to do. The long-term plan you've proposed reduces the capital expenditure allocated to Tinakau from 203 million to 114 million. This remaining 114 million is planned for set projects, unquote. Set is the wording in the consultation document. I don't know what these set projects are, but I surmise they are to implement the Warramani development plan. This unimaginative plan is for a bland, flat civic square leading to a 6-lane pedestrian crossing across a busy Jervois quay. This connects to a wide pedestrian promenade alongside the Wairepo Lagoon, requiring reclamation of a good part of the lagoon. The cost of putting all this in place from where it is today will be at least 114 million, and if recent council estimates are anything to go by, a lot more. There are several issues with the Warramani plan that have not been fully investigated. For example, it will have a drastic impact on rowing and dragon boat activities. I've been informed that rowing 8s will no longer be able to use the lagoon because of insufficient manoeuvring area. Another example, Tinakau will be surrounded by buildings including 3 new 10-storey buildings. As a result, the square will be shady at times and windy. I appreciate the council intends to sell the sites, but there are questions about the financial viability of this. Commercial demand is no longer there at the present time. This plan has not been properly consulted with our community and people are broadly unaware of it. I suggest Tinakau for now is returned to what it was in 1990, an award-winning Ian Athfield-inspired space. This only requires 20 million of capital expenditure in the medium term. This sum is for minor strengthening of the City to Sea Bridge and some internal steel frames in the Capital E building. Advice along these lines has been provided to council officers, but they've chosen to ignore it in favour of the Warramani plan. The bridge is not earthquake prone and will withstand a 1 in 100 year earthquake without strengthening. There is no legal requirement to do anything, but it would benefit from some minor strengthening to increase the NBS to 70% in IL2. The capital E is earthquake prone, but with a change of use can be made an acceptable IL2 structure by inserting internal steel frames. This is a relatively standard approach. My view is informed by a 50-year career in engineering and project work, including for the council and the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority. I am a Fellow of Engineering New Zealand. Restoring Tinakau, the Civic Square, will save the council more than 90 million, and it has no risk. It's just restoring what was. In future, if you have a decent new plan and the funding is available, then by all means go for it. In the meantime, park this Warramani plan and save 90 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. We've got time for one question from Councillor Free.
Thank you, Bruce. I just wondered if you had any view on fencing the waterfront and the cost of that versus the benefits.
I don't have a particular view on fencing the waterfront.
Well, it's.
I do think there are some issues at the waterfront. I mean, bridges are not subject to the earthquake-prone legislation. Neither are wharves. So, and I think I have worked for Lambton Harbour Management in my previous time, and I was the project manager of the marina at Schaefer's Marina. But I think the wharves actually need a global look at them, because I know that, for example, Queen's Wharf has some serious structural issues. But as far as the fencing is concerned, I think possibly in some strategic locations, I think it would make sense, but it certainly doesn't make sense to me to do the whole lot of it.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Now we have Melissa McGee, and I think Sandamali's online. Yeah, you can sit there. Yep. So you have 10 minutes.
No. Kia ora koutou. Thank you very much for having us here today. My name is Melissa McGee and I'm the chairperson of the Property Council Wellington Committee. Joining me online is Sandra Marley from our advocacy team. On behalf of the Property Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on the draft annual plan. The Property Council represents 139 Wellington-based members, companies across the private, public and charitable sectors. Collectively, we are part of Wellington's third largest industry, property, which contributes $8.6 billion to GDP and provides jobs for over 24,000 residents. We are here today to express our serious concerns about the proposed increases in rates and fees. If implemented, they will impose significant cumulative costs on property owners, businesses, and ultimately the wider Wellington community. These costs will increase the cost of living and doing business in our city. Wellington is already one of the most expensive cities in New Zealand for business. This year's draft annual plan proposes 12.2% rates increase, continued high business rating differential at 3.7 to 1, 1.4% levy for sludge minimisation facility, a 5 to 1 vacant site differential, proposed increases to consent fees. These costs add up. They reduce the capital available to upgrade and maintain buildings where Wellingtonians live and work. They will lead to higher rents and operating costs, which will ultimately be passed on to consumers. This is not a formula for a flourishing built environment or a revitalised CBD. On the business differential, we've consistently opposed the use of business differential as a funding tool. It lacks transparency and fairness, often resulting in rates that don't reflect the services businesses actually receive. Late 2023, council officers recommended reducing the differential from 3.7 to 3.25. Council voted against this advice, not based on economic analysis, but on political concerns about residential rates. What was especially disappointing is that there was no consideration of a meet-in-the-middle approach despite your own officers recommending a reduction in the business differential. The decision to ignore even a phased or compromised position sent a clear signal that concerns of Wellington's business community are not being heard. Council is now proposing to increase the commercial share of general rates from 44% to 48%. We're told this won't lead to further rates increases for businesses, but we want clarity. What benefits or services will businesses receive in return for this greater share? Wellington must remain competitive. If it is more affordable to do business in Christchurch with lower rates, insurance and infrastructure costs, then why would an investor choose Wellington? We urge Council to commit to a staged reduction of the business differential with a long-term goal of removing it entirely. This must be replaced with more equitable and transparent funding tools. On the vacant site differential, we maintain our position to the 5 to 1 vacant differential. The development process is complex. Delays are often beyond the owner's control. A blanket rate penalises owners unfairly. We recommend Council actively engage with affected property owners to understand the status and intent of development sites, rather than implying a one-size-fits-all levy. To encourage development and build investor in confidence, this differential should be removed. Looking ahead, we urge City Council to compare its commercial rates and charges with those in other major cities. Understanding where we sit will help identify barriers to investment. In terms of solutions, we support the use of transparent user pay models such as targeted rates and special purpose vehicles. We also encourage Council to seek a regional deal with central government. Greater financial support for central government can drive infrastructure improvements and unlock investment across the city. In conclusion, our sector wants to invest in Wellington. We want to see a city that is vibrant, resilient and competitive. But the current proposals will make development harder and more expensive. At the very time, we need to be doing the opposite. We urge Council to adopt a fairer, smarter and more sustainable approach. Thank you for your time and we welcome your questions.
I've got the first one from Councillor Rogers because he was earlier than the rest.
Yeah, I was just wondering, does the Property Council have a view as to whether the council's investment in public space and amenity would drive investment in private property development?
There's definitely a vision for the city. I think if the public spaces are more attractive, then in turn it will help with development. But ultimately the costs, it's down to costs. Like, it's too expensive to do anything. I mean, there's no major developments really in the pipeline coming up, and that's purely down to cost of developments. Yeah, I mean, Sandy, you might have something more to add on that.
No, you've covered it.
But yeah, I think we're coming across pretty clear that the cost of doing business in Wellington is ridiculous, to be fair, compared to elsewhere. Yeah, and that's what you're competing with other cities in New Zealand. So you need to actually benchmark where they're at to get a gauge of, or what makes Wellington unique. Yeah.
Chung, then Randall.
Great, thanks so much for coming in. Do you think, when we're looking at the differential, with the funding, with the rates income that we actually get from that, do you think that we should be discussing with businesses about how that money is actually spent to actually increase the number of people coming into Wellington to do business or to work here? Or do you think that we can actually put that into infrastructure and that would actually suffice?
Well, I think there needs to be savings because ultimately it's too high. Like, no matter where the money's going, it's too high. And it's the cost of doing business is exorbitant from insurance and rates only. Like, operating expenses wise for building, 85% of it is made up of rates and insurance alone. Again, Sandy, pipe in if you've got anything to add.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're constantly talking that there needs to be other mechanisms for income or savings to be had. Increasing rates is not a continual viable option for businesses.
Yeah, especially when you have the alternative options available as well, which we've touched on.
Which is more the user pay models. I mean, engagement's one thing, but ultimately we've struggled to see that why the business is paying the majority of rates and not receiving the majority of the benefit of them. Yeah. And they just keep going up, and the proportion is out of sync. And we acknowledge that it's not a politically nice topic, decreasing commercial and increasing residential, but ultimately it needs to be addressed, and we're not saying to do it overnight. We're just saying a plan needs to be made. Yeah.
Randall.
Yes, thank you. It is a hard message. In terms, do you see, and maybe you can elaborate a bit more, that businesses are leaving Wellington, or perhaps are no longer considering moving or expanding to Wellington because, not just because of the economic conditions, but simply because of the cost of and risk of setting up in business?
I mean, Wellington's saving grace is government. If you didn't have government here, I think you would have a lot more businesses leave town. But I personally had anecdotes this week of someone leaving, works for a Big Four company. They're choosing to move to Christchurch because the housing's cheaper, better lifestyles, rates, insurance, or cost of living is all much cheaper down there.
Sorry, just to add on that as well, just the other issues which we've kind of touched on, but the seismic and the insurance angle as well. We're not seeing many overseas investors come here and businesses moving to other cities. So it's one of many issues.
I guess I've got an example of a property that's trying to be sold currently. Good tenant in place. It is on a gross lease, so the OPEX is payable by the landlord, and that keeps going up. And the uncertainty of those rates and insurance costs, they've got, like, the owner can't sell it. They're looking at a 9.5, 10% yield, and still they can't get anyone to buy it. Yeah. And it's got a good seismic rating as well, so...
You're getting us very excited now. Councillor McNulty.
Incredibly quick. Do you think, given the view of rationalisation of rates and things, that amalgamation should be something the next council has a look at?
Yeah, I think I'll let Sandy talk on Property Council's position on that, which she'll probably be across more, but I think we're supportive of amalgamation. Yeah. Yeah. Anything to create efficiencies and cost reductions.
Great. Thank you very much. See you later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Rona Carson from the Newtowns Residents Association.
Just sit on that actual.
Hello.
Hello. You've got 10 minutes.
Yeah. Now, firstly, we, as an association, we don't have a position on the majority of the long-term plan amendments because there's such a wide variety of views. People are making their own individual submissions. Is this okay? But we do have a view on Te Awa Mapara, the community facilities plan, and we strongly oppose reducing the funding for that, even if it is put back to years 8 and 9, because community facilities are generally underfunded. And if there's some money taken out of that expectation, we very much doubt it'll come back in. But mainly, I'm here to talk about my favourite topic of toilets in Newtown parks. The last time I was here, it was to talk about the Owen Street Park, which is being built as we talk. And the toilets, the request for toilets there was turned down. I'd like at some point an opportunity to reopen that. I'm sort of flagging it because I don't think it's what you mostly want to hear about in this particular discussion, but it does sound like a long-term plan issue for me. And partly to look more closely at the community facilities plan in conjunction with other, like the open spaces policy and the community play spaces policy, which have varying criteria for toilets in parks. And a suggestion that any park that has a barbecue and associated facilities, I think could be called a destination park. And the criteria for destination parks is generally that they have toilets. I think that's a discussion for another day, but I'd like to flag it so that it's sort of on the awareness, on the agenda. And I'm not quite sure when it would be an okay thing to have a full discussion of. But most urgently, we're wondering what's happened to the Kōrau Park toilets. You might remember back in 2023, it was agreed that those toilets would be added to the community facilities plan to go into the long-term plan. And you might also remember that on the 15th of February 2024, you had a marathon meeting, a 7 hours, 20 minutes, I think, meeting, which I was just looking back at aspects of over the last couple of days. And you might remember that you made 65 decisions on aspects of budget and policy and strategy for the long-term plan. And one of those decisions that you actually passed at 16-1 at that meeting was to agree to bring forward the funding to upgrade the Kōrau Park toilets to year 2 of the long-term plan. So, you know, that's a decision Council's already made. If it hadn't been, I'd be asking you to make it. But so we were waiting and expecting something to be happening, and nothing was happening. So we asked Deputy Mayor and Councillor Nuruddin to inquire on our behalf, and we had just got the answer back at our April meeting that because according to the long-term plan, the toilets weren't going to be happening to year 4, there'd been no planning done, nothing had happened about it. So, you know, you can imagine we were a bit confused. And what we're hoping is that that's a mistake that's going to be rectified. We hope it's not a deliberate policy to, not to provide our toilets until well down the track, because we've been waiting 30 years and we're rather tired of waiting, and we rather hope that they would be appearing very soon. Essentially, that's what I want to say. So if you've got questions or...
We have a question from Councillor Abdurrahman and then Councillor Chung.
I was about to ask how long you've been advocating for this, for which you already answered 30 years. And the second part is, could you please share a story of how people struggle? Example, maybe you can share my daughter, what happened last time when I was there, and so people can realize what it means, why this is very important for the community.
Yeah, we had a party in Kōrau Park. It was a surprise party to farewell Anna and Martin, the Newtown Festival directors, or at least to mark that they were stepping back from that role. And we were delighted to welcome our councillors to that meeting. We considered whether we hire in a portaloo, because that's what we do if there's any major event. That costs us $200 a time. And we thought, we'd probably get away with it because we were going to be going from 1 till 4, and we thought mostly you could probably hold on. However, Councillor Abdurrahman's daughter found it rather difficult, and you had to go and knock on someone's door to ask to use the toilet, didn't you? That sort of thing happens quite often. There are a lot of parties in the park. Not many people would actually have enough planning to order a portaloo or think it was worth it, so they have to leave early, or else do the other thing, which does happen. People do use the bushes. When the horticultural team was doing a big clear up, they found a rather lot of evidence of that. So it's a health risk as well as a social problem. Anyway, that's So that was a story, and this other similar ones. Yeah.
Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much for coming, Rona. My question is actually very similar to that, talking about PUP. Do you think it would be a good interim measure for the council to actually put water portaloos in there?
But better than nothing, but I'm really hoping that we're going to get the real thing. I mean, I'd like to just quickly contrast that with the story of Ian Galloway Park, where they had a petition about a year before we had our petition. The residents around there had a petition to install toilets, which was presented in August 2022, year before ours. And at that stage, there was no funding allocated, but funding was found and went into the 2023-24 annual plan. And Ian Galloway Park now has their toilets. I would rather hope we would be regarded similarly. The funding will be found and it will go into the annual plan, hopefully this time round. But I mean, portaloo is always better than nothing, and it would certainly, in the short term, make it easier for people to have their birthday parties and so on, so long as it didn't hold up the real thing.
Great. Yeah. Councillor Abdurrahman has a follow-up question.
No, this is a completely different question, and two questions, I will lump them into one. So one is regards to the homelessness issue that we have around Newtown. Do you think, or how do you think this council can better understand and address the issues? And since we're talking about long-term plan as well, we have such a big and diverse community, and the library is pretty small. Do you think it should be part of the discussion as well, even if there is no funding allocated?
Taking the library first, in the community facilities plan, all the community facilities are listed, and it's noted that the library is too small, and there's meant to be a review of all the facilities. And according to the plan, it's meant to be on a very short time frame. But that's the same with a lot of other communities as well. So we're wondering if, in fact, any of those reviews have been happening, And certainly, I do think that it would be good to have both the library space increased and also the next door property has got some building issues. The homeless problem is obviously it's widespread through the city, but it is certainly very evident in Newtown. I don't think we've got any other solutions than anyone else, but we would like to see more of the same resources that are addressed in the central city coming to Newtown. Yeah.
Very quick question from Councillor McNulty.
Just when you were here last time on the Owen Street toilets, I see now we've got a stage for performances and events, a large green open space. It seems like we're doing quite a lot up there. So you reiterate your call that toilets there would be a requirement?
Yes, I really think so. I mean, I thought so all along, but it was thought that because there was another toilet within 5 minutes walk, but as I say, it's actually in the open spaces policy, there's a designated a destination park should have toilets, and I think it's definitely a destination park. Yeah. Sorry, I've run out of time.
That's okay. Thank you, Rona.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Next up, we've got Glenn Barclay and Finn Caldwell from Living Wage Aotearoa.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Glenn Barclay ahau. I'm here on my own. Finn's not able to make it, and nor is the cast of thousands we usually bring along to our submissions. So I'm here to submit on behalf of the Living Wage Movement, specifically in relation to the options for the future of water in the Wellington region. I'd like to start by first of all commending Wellington City Council as a pioneer of the living wage in local government. You were the first accredited living wage employer in local government, and you've since been followed by others in the region, Hutt, Porirua and Kapiti. And that's absolutely to be commended, and you understand the important contribution that the living wage makes to worker well-being, whānau well-being and community well-being. I know there's been many challenges through that period of adopting the living wage. We worked with you through those. It was a partnership really between the Living Wage Movement and Council, and it took a bit of a struggle, but we got there in the end. So now we come to with the consideration of various options for the future of water in the region, to think about what the living wage, the role the living wage might play in all of that. We see that this is a great opportunity, particularly with options 1 and 2, which involve the establishment of a new entity, to start off with the living wage as a commitment to build the new entity as a living wage employer. If it's option 2, well, that's a much more clean and direct consideration, given that it'll be directly under the control of council. If it's your preferred option for a regional response, well, we're making similar submissions to other councils that are already accredited employers, asking them all to back the living wage. So, in essence, the recommendation is as in our submission, which is that the council agrees in principle to ensure that any new water entity becomes an accredited living wage employer, and agree to establish a working group with the Living Wage Movement Aotearoa to ensure any new water entity smoothly becomes a living wage employer on its formation. And just on the working party thing, that's been our normal way of working. We did that with the council here. We're in the middle of a process with the Greater Wellington Regional Council, who a year or so ago signed up to become an accredited employer, and we're very close to getting that across the line, a very complex thing, but we've established a working group and have partnered with the regional council on that, and we think this should be the way forward on the new entity.
Anything else, Glenn? No? Any questions? Yes, Councillor Matthews.
Kia ora, Glenn, and Porirua and Hutt City are both accredited as well, so there shouldn't be any barrier across the region.
There shouldn't be. Yep.
Councillor Pennant.
Sorry, can I just quickly ask, I presume no one is actually paid under the living wage at Wellington Water currently?
They're not accredited, that's much I know, but I couldn't tell you.
Couldn't tell it, because I'm just given the skills involved,
I mean, certainly, I think with Wellington Water at the moment and any future entity, there are a lot of workers who are contracted who would be paid under the living wage, and it's essential that they get that protection.
Thank you, Glenn.
Cool.
Graham Clark and Warwick Taylor from the Wellington Residents Coalition.
Can I stand?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, sure.
Forgive me, I left my glasses behind, so I had to borrow some. I'm Graham Clark with an E. My great-grandfather will never forgive you for missing that. And I'm here to speak for the Wellington Residents Coalition. Excuse me if I squint a bit because these glasses are not mine. All three options for Wellington City Council for water are bad. They say that the price paid for water will increase by a minimum of 7% for a number of years. That's just too much. This reflects that all options are premised on borrowing large sums of money. A Wellington Regional Council consultation document identifies some of the big ticket items as enlarging the current lakes and adding new lakes. This is of course in addition to the borrowing of $300 million for water meters and volumetric charging. The program behind all three Wellington City Council options is a neoliberal plan. Treat water as a business, supply more of it, and create so-called efficiency by user pays. With water supply being a natural monopoly, it will ultimately result in a negative outcome for the majority of residents. As with other neoliberal policies, the wealthy will pay relatively less and the poorer will pay relatively more. Wellington City Council is to be congratulated for the scrutiny it has placed Wellington Water under, identifying its faults and asking questions as to remedies. It is the fact that Wellington Water has had to come here and ask for money to justify itself to you that helped reveal its incompetence. All three of the current proposals, however, will give up that kind of scrutiny and create an organisation with a board full of so-called experts and business gurus, overseen by a committee of local reps. The organisation will control its own funding and the supply of information to justify it, and so will in reality have a free rein that Wellington Water does not have. Wellington Water's campaign for more money has laid the basis for the three Wellington City Council options. The propaganda planks justifying these options arose from that campaign. Some of them are: the growing population needs a growing water supply, the growing number of leaks is down to old pipes and underinvestment in renewal. Leaks need to be found and water meters will do this, etc., etc. Just take the first of these propositions. Population increased by 28% between 1990 and 2016. Water use decreased by 14% over the same period. If leaks were fixed efficiently, if old leak-prone pipes were replaced, why will a growing population require more water? The evidence is that it won't. Improvements in domestic water appliance technology will continue to reduce the amount of water required per person. If this technology was promoted as part of a new approach to supplying water, the savings could actually be increased. The time has come to stand up to the incessant falsehoods of the neoliberals proclaiming there is no alternative. We need to work out an alternative that those of us who aren't wealthy can afford. Access to water is a human right, not a market business. That is why we say scrap all three of the current proposals. Let's be creative and develop a democratic option that supplies water economically.
Thank you, Graham. Councillor Free and then Councillor Chung.
Thanks, Graham. I'm just wondering if you see a distinction between whether it's a good idea to have water meters in the first place for various things like leak detection and how we charge for water.
Water meters for what protection?
You know, just to keep an eye on where the water is flowing in the system, which is one of the reasons they've been being suggested. Do you see a difference between actually having them and the regime you use to charge? There's lots of different ways for charging, including some quantum of water that could be free.
My understanding is that there's a device that you could put in a local resident's pipe for $500 that would shut the pipe off when there was a leak. If you have a water meter there, it identifies there may be a leak past it, but it doesn't tell you where the leak is. What you have to do is you actually have to listen for the leak to identify its location. Wellington Water employs people right now who go to water vents and listen and identify where leaks are occurring. Water meters for leaks is just a myth. It's a thing that's been peddled by Wellington Water because they want control over their revenue. And if they have water meters, they get control over their revenue. They no longer have to come and ask you for money to pay for this, that or the next thing. And that's, to my way of thinking, surrendering your ability to represent ratepayers.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much for coming in, Graham. Much appreciated. I would like to also talk about water meters. Now, all the pumping stations in Wellington have water meters in them. So do you think that the bulk of the water leaks in Wellington are actually in the network and not actually on private property? So therefore, do you think that having water meters on private properties actually will even detect water leaks?
Well, I think people quote Kapiti, and you look at Kapiti, it's built on sand, so you get a lot of invisible leaks. Look at Wellington, it's largely built on clay. And if you walk around the streets of Wellington, you can see the leaks. Very few of the leaks are on private land, and those that are, that I see, are fixed very quickly. The water meters that you have in the public network give you an indication where leaks are occurring, and your water listener, which they employ people to do right now, can identify it. I had a nice talk to one of them in the street who told me how he could identify leaks that they thought had been fixed and hadn't been fixed. So the network is already there. Water meters for residents, it's about one thing and one thing only, charging for water by volume.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor, oh no, wait, we've got one more question.
More questions?
Yep, you've got 3 minutes. Councillor Abdurrahman.
Kia ora, Graham, and thank you for your submission. And let's say what currently proposed goes through, how do you think the low-income family can be protected from the regime of charging for water?
Well, you can't really protect lower-income people. A large number of them are tenants. How much water a tenant uses is down to their landlord, because the appliances they supply will determine the use of water. So if you have a water pressure reduction valve in your house, you will reduce the amount of water going into your shower if you've got high water pressure, which a lot of Wellington does, by a third. That makes a huge impact on the amount of water that you use. Will landlords put a water pressure reduction valve in their house? Who knows? We certainly had to, because we had so many leaks, and we had leaks in our house that without reducing the excess water pressure, you know, we were just shelling out money on water leaks. And so there are any number of different avenues for reducing the consumption of water, but for tenants, it's going to rely on the landlord to actually do it.
Thank you, Graham. That's it.
Thank you.
Claire Bibby from the Glenside Progressive Association in the Northern Ward. Claire, you've got 10 minutes, and do you have a presentation? Is this?
Yeah, it's up.
Cool.
Thanks,
Great,
John.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Claire Bibby and I'm President of the Glenside Progressive Association, and the purpose of my talk is to illustrate the key points made in my submission, or our submission. It's impossible to talk about cost savings in the long-term plan, annual plan and water without referring to the district plan, because the district plan influences many outcomes. This photograph that I've put up is Middleton Road and Rail Corridor, which carries the Kōrau stream and all the water that runs off the houses, roads and hills around it. It also carries the main sewer to Te Tahi Bay. My talk is about the cost of the impact of weather and development on the road and rail corridor. Metlink's March 2025 report informs us that nearly 400,000 people travel the Kapiti Railway line monthly, and the Wellington City Council transport stats say about 4,212 vehicles travel this rural section of Middleton Road daily. Our concern is that greenfield development is not being implemented properly and it's costing us. The council should not be paying for developer roads, and developers should build their roads that have been agreed to and planned for. Furthermore, there's not enough influence of ecologists to help manage the sediment and water flows of greenfield development, which creates damage. Te Kahu Road linking Westchester Drive to new housing should be built by the developer before any more of his land in Glenside is released for development. This is because the Reedy block was a fast-track development to encourage housing. The hills and the gullies have been flattened out, but the housing roading to the development hasn't been built. And you can see in the first picture, that's Te Kahu Road that's meant to be going up the side of the hill there before the development earthworks progressed. And this slide shows you, you can see the road angling up there from the bottom left of the slide up towards the flat area. That was just taken last year. People are required to travel 2.3 kilometres to get to their homes when they could use Te Kahu Road to get to their homes directly if the developer got on and built it. So the yellow picture on that slide is the route that they have to take to get to the top of the development. The pink road is Te Kahu Road. And the blue shows you the special housing cord area that was meant to be for affordable housing, which hasn't been built. Instead, the developer's building a road into the Glenside Hills for development that hasn't yet been approved. You can see it in the centre of the picture there. And these are the steep hills above the Middleton Road corridor that I spoke to you about in the first couple of slides. That's where he's heading. So he's going to be filling in all of those steep gullies where all the water flows and flattening them out. You've got to think about where that water's going to end up. It's heading towards the Kōrau stream, which carries that road and rail corridor in your sewer. It shows the road, the earthworks heading into Glenside. I took this year. I have been asking the council for a resource consent for this, but they haven't been able to provide one. It's heading across the stream above a proposed special natural area. Also in this photograph you can see a scar which is on the motorway on-ramp, which is a landslide that closed the road there. It's just above the trees in the centre of the photo, if you can see the motorway sliding across the middle. And at the back, up top left corner, is land that the developer is preparing for more housing. But let's go back to that fast-track development on the Reedy block. When it was being, the earthworks was being done, there were landslides and slurry that closed Westchester Drive. And the second photo demonstrates how water had to find a new route once the natural stream was filled in with earthworks. The water broke through a containment bund, creating a waterfall. The Kaikoura earthquake coupled with rainfall created more landslides. So council's going to need to up the budget to manage the erosion and landslides and slurry that's going to impact Middleton Road and the rail corridor if Glenside West is developed. So we're talking about projected funding going ahead. The way to save these future costs is to manage the development impact better than how it's currently managed. These slides of the debris arrestor in the Kōrau stream are a reminder that all water flows into the Kōrau stream, and this old construction is what stops the rubble taking out the infrastructure in Willowbank, Takapū and Tawa downstream. It's broken a couple of times with the weight of the debris and the water. It's just a reminder again that the main sewer line is along that riverbank. That's the main sewer down to Te Bay, which takes all the sewage from Johnsonville North. This is the impact of the water damage upstream and downstream of the debris arrestor. Here's a more recent example of water runoff affecting Glenside properties. In the heart, Greater Wellington's relocated families affected by rising water and flooding water. What's City Council going to do in partnership with Greater Wellington to relocate families living alongside the stream from Glenside to Tawa? Where's that budget? Here's a non-compliant crossing which is not secured to the bank. So they've put a shipping container across there after their bridge broke when there was a storm which took out their footbridge. In an earthquake or flood event, this is going to cause a lot of damage which will have a high cost impact to you, to me. There's no overall plan to reduce the cost of water runoff caused by greenfield development and heavy weather events. Changing the landscape by flattening hills for greenfield developments costing council and existing homeowners because best practice for water management is not being implemented. Furthermore, the ecologist's voice is absent at the table. I just want to finish off with just a point here. You've got the 74-75 hectare proposal for the Matai Moana Reserve. I understand it's 750,000 per annum, which is about 100,000 per hectare every year. Over there on the other side is a picture of the entrance to the 13-hectare Glenside Reserve. We've got no money per annum and no money per hectare every year planned. Council's owned this reserve since the 1951. We're applying for grant funds to get a plan underway for this, and our first application was turned down because City Council's not showing any commitment to this reserve. Thank you.
Councillor McNulty has a question.
Kia ora, Claire. Could you just speak a bit about your involvement with Ngāti Toa in the Glenside Reserve and how you've brought them on site and their view of the potentials for that reserve?
Yes, we've held several community meetings and Ngāti Toa came in on a one-on-one visit with us, and they encouraged us to end the horse grazing on the reserve, which we're very grateful to this committee, or the regulatory committee, for supporting. So our next stage now is to apply for a grant for a combined plan to implement a proposal to plant it, to get tracks in, to make it nice for birds. And I was very grateful to Dania Biagio from Urban Ecology Team and Stu Tarrant that she brought on, Tarrant, I think it is, Farrant, she brought on board to discuss what could be done in there realistically. And I did mention to her that because it's flat, potentially we could do something for our community that's bound to wheelchairs, because we do have a lot of wheelchair visitors to the halfway house. So we started talking along that line, but we need to get together with our communities with a plan, with funding for that plan, so we can do that together and not in isolation, which is what our community wants to drive and lead.
Councillor Free.
I have a lot of sympathy with you, but do you have any idea roughly of what you'd be asking for financially?
For a landscape plan, we've already had a cost for that, and it's approximately $19,000 all up from memory. We've applied for a grant for half of that, and we'll be applying for another grant within the next 4 weeks to fill the gap.
Yeah.
You mentioned the problems with water. Is there any way the plan is there any way of mitigating that water overflow with some sort of use of this land?
Specifically the reserve, there's blackberry has to be sprayed and planting has to be done, but when you're talking about the greenfield development, the slopes are too steep. So some of them have gone from like a 1 in 45 degree to 1 in 26. You know, they're just so steep that the water has got nowhere to go except straight down. And that's what's creating the landslides and causing the slurry and filling up the streams with sediment.
Councillor Randall, get the last question.
Thank you. in terms of what you're facing is a developer spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on developments, do you think you, as the local community group and neighbouring property owners, are getting sufficient support and engagement from the council in dealing with this? And what could we do to...
They listened to us really well when it came to the proposals for the development of Glenside West by putting in environmental reports, impact reports, and getting the ecologists in and doing heritage studies. But these don't seem to be taken any notice of. And we understand that with the commissioners are proposing that the development for Glenside West goes ahead, whereas we said just hold off, because in the future there may be even better ideas on how to manage the land there. Also, it's the steepest land, whereas all around on the other side of the motorway it's much flatter. I would encourage the councillors to go for a drive up Granada Mark Ave, up where the water tank is, and look across at the land. It's beautiful, it's flat, it doesn't need all extensive earthworks right above your Middleton Road corridor that Glenside West is proposing. But there's no ecologists around to talk. The only one that council seems to have is Daniela Piaggio. So they're not meeting and talking about the impacts of what's actually going to happen with some of the development that's going on, and it is affecting everyone downstream. I understand that $40 million was spent clearing out the sediment at the Kōrau railway station by Greater Wellington, which I assume City Council contributed to. For that price, you could have bought Callender's land and Glenside West and stopped all the future problems happening, which you're going to get if that's developed.
Okay, we're out of time, unfortunately, so...
I've put my email on there, and you know how to get hold of me, so if you've got any questions, please do. Thank you.
Definitely know how to get hold of you. Thank you, Claire. Next up is Tina Reid. You've got 5 minutes, Tina.
Thank you for the invitation today. I'm submitting as an individual. I am very involved with both Mount Cook Community Organisation and Walk Wellington, and it's really from experience of both of those that I thought it was worth coming today and making a couple of fairly minor points in the overall picture. I did find the amendment to the plan and the local water done well papers quite understandable and followable, and didn't really have any particular comment about the recommendations that were made in those documents. But I came to talk about 3 issues, 2 of them Mount Cook issues. It's interesting living in Mount Cook. It's very much a fringe area on the city, and we are very aware of a lot of issues that regard that. And it's interesting coming after Claire and the Glenside issues, because the first one relates to water management, and it relates to our local councillors will be very aware of our continual efforts to get some sort of management of the small stream that leads down from Brooklyn through Prince of Wales Park, through Papawai Garden, gets culverted, goes under Tasman Street, comes out along Basin Reserve to Waitangi Park. We call it Papawai Stream. It floods, and people, as I say, local councils are very aware of that. It floods really badly. We've recently discovered in discussions with Walk Wellington that actually in flooding, we've had to dig out and replace, they've had to dig out and replace a scruffy dome at least once and dig it out several times. But in flooding, it's silting up one of the entrances to the Waitangi Park, which is causing backup. And it was actually that discovery which suddenly created some movement, for which we were actually very grateful, because we'd found ourselves being basically duck-shoved between, at the time, the reservoir development had some requirements, the big reservoir in Brooklyn had some requirements for management of runoff, but we were being shoved pillar to post between the developers, the Wellington Water, Regional Council and Wellington Council, and no one would actually come and talk to us about this stream with any authority. It actually took an activist in our group to come up with a plan. He said, I reckon if we did this and this, and then Wellington Water discovered the silting down the road problem, and then they suddenly showed interest, got in Morpham, a contract specialist who suddenly says, oh yeah, I see what you suggest, we can follow that kind of example. So my plea is twofold. On the minor level, it's that work gets momentum. We've now got Wellington Water and a plan, first stage funded. We've got rocks sitting there waiting to put in the stream. We've got a second plan for managing the bit further up in discussion and funding. But we want to make sure that the momentum, it's taken us about 5 years at least to get to this point, is maintained. And secondly, a bigger picture is it sort of relates to me about water management. And without understanding the complexities of water management, the kind of being able to have some responsiveness to local issues is really important, and having a body that can actually say, right, we see what you're talking about. And right, you've got this issue in Mount Cook, and we know these folks in Glenside have got this issue, and there's these issues, and they can give us a picture that we understand in some kind of program of work, instead of the process we've had over the last 5 years. So we just wanted to talk about Papawai Stream, and Mount Cook people keep turning up and talking about Papawai Stream until we get it fixed. Another vision is an interesting one, a longer term one that we recently started talking about, which is actually, I see I'm running out of time, is Adelaide Road development. Now we know that the lovely concept drawings that were created in 2008 have never progressed apart from a couple of rather nice apartment blocks. It's a terrible transport canyon, and it's got the potential for real residential development and a sort of boulevard-style development. It's the mass transit plan, we believe, held that up. But we do think that some local action to get Adelaide Road development on the agenda would be great. And thirdly, I just wanted to say, third thing I was going to mention, is City to Sea Bridge. I made a submission about that a few months ago, and my particular plea is that in whatever solution is found, that the artworks, which to me are an essential part of the heart of Wellington, the artworks that are currently on City to Sea Bridge are retained and used in some way in Te Ngākau, because that's what the Heart for Wellington's about.
Thank you, Tina. Yes, we will take those comments on board as well. Well, we come to our last submitter of the day, Glyn Hunt. You can sit there, yeah. You've got 5 minutes.
Push to talk. Pushed. So my name's Glyn. I'm here as a private individual, not as representing my employer, Wellington Water. For context, I've been living here in Wellington for 11 years, working throughout the region, up the coast, up Hutt Valley and Wellington City. I'm a surveyor. I've been working in surveying and mapping and construction for 25 years plus. 11 of those have been in the Wellington region. When I came to New Zealand, I retrained in land development and subdivision, and I'm on my way to become a cadastral surveyor. I'm not one yet, but that's what I'm working towards. The last 1 year, I've spent working for Wellington Water. I could see what was going on with the economy, so I made a decision to quite rightly, quite sensibly go. But I ended up going there just before everything happened with the accounts, just before the water reform. And I'm seeing lots of notes being taken down here. I've had an interesting experience of Wellington Water. I think it's great that there's water reform happening. I'm worried about the outcome of what could happen if certain things are chosen. That's why I've just come here to try and encourage you to choose the Wellington Water's preferred model, which I've been persuaded is the best option. At the moment, as you know, Wellington Water is going through reform. And again, I stress I'm not speaking on behalf of Wellington Water. I just happen to have a good view of it. And I'm going to say this at quite a high level. Those reports are having positive impacts now, as painful as they are. Those reforms are through what I can see and understand are mistakes of the past, trying to catch up and trying to prepare the entity for whatever the new entity will become. The resource of water is region-wide. To try and think of it in terms of a local authority perspective is admirable for the point of view from the taxpayers. I'm saying this quite badly, but what I'm trying to say is you need to have regionalised rather than localised. You can have a service with local flavours, but to have the option of an entity which is essentially just a water board of the local authority would, compared to the other options, or one of the other option, not be the best outcome. The model as it is broke. So to carry on with the model as it is not a good option. So that basically leaves you with the option of taking what there is and following the advice of Wellington Water for the enlarged with more powers option. I'll call it quits there. And any questions? Again, I stress I'm not representing Wellington Water.
It's all right. We've got a question from Councillor Randall, and then we've Councillor Free.
Thank you. I've got a number. I'd love to tap into your experience some more. But my question is, one of the options which is not in consultation, but we have the choice of, is to keep for the council to bring stormwater back into our own management and not pass it on to a regional entity like Wellington Water managing it. We've just heard two submitters talking about the challenges of managing stormwater. What's your view about whether a new regional entity will do a better job of managing stormwater, or is it just get to be too complicated and maybe the council should think about taking it in-house?
I'll answer in two ways. Firstly, the option that one of the three options was for a wholesale water body, including all the three waters. So that's the first part of my answer. The second part is it would just be too complicated. Wellington Water at the moment is trying to do its necessary reforms, prepare for whatever happens after all the councils go through their consultations. And then to have that niche extra thing for the council, that's too complicated.
That was my question.
Okay, that's great. Well, we're finished then. Thank you very much for your presentation, and you are the last for the day. So we will adjourn the meeting till Wednesday, 5 p.m. on the 7th of May. I'll put the motion, seconded. Please vote.
You just put me.
Press the button, Tim. Neriden, you button. No. Okay. Voting closed, and that's carried. We'll see you tomorrow.